El presidente de Estados Unidos, Joe Biden, reiteró su apoyo a Ucrania en una llamada con el presidente Volodymyr Zelensky este jueves. Así lo informó la Casa Blanca. Biden aprovechó de felicitar a su homólogo por la conmemoración del Día Nacional del país europeo, el Día de la Independencia de Ucrania. Ambos se refirieron a la situación en la central nuclear de Zaporiyia. Un funcionario dijo a CNN que Estados Unidos está monitoreando de cerca lo relacionado a la planta y que permanecen firmes contra cualquier intento de redirigir su energía. Y justamente este jueves el organismo de control de la ONU informó que se había restablecido el suministro de energía de la central nuclear de Zaporiyia, luego de que fuera desconectada por las fuerzas rusas que la ocupan. Sin embargo, la Agencia Internacional de Energía Atómica informó que los 2 reactores nucleares que aún funcionan están desconectados de la red eléctrica de Ucrania. También, Estados Unidos y Rusia polemizan sobre los próximos juicios a prisioneros de guerra ucranianos. El Departamento de Estado se pronunció este miércoles sobre los llamados tribunales de Mariupol, controlados por Rusia. Estados Unidos dijo que con los juicios que pretenden hacer, se desvía la atención sobre la invasión ordenada por Putin y las atrocidades cometidas por sus soldados. La embajada rusa en Washington respondió este jueves que con estos procesos solo pretenden hacer justicia contra, y abro comillas, los criminales de guerra de Ucrania, así los llamaron. Por su parte, el presidente de Rusia asegura que reforzar la presencia militar debe suceder. Este jueves, Vladimir Putin firmó un decreto para aumentar el tamaño de las fuerzas armadas de su país. Según la información oficial, el personal aumentará en 137,000 efectivos. Ahora, el total pasa de 1.900.000 a 2.400.000 oficiales. El decreto entrará en vigor el 1 de enero de 2023.
And we need more sophisticated weaponry. And I would say that in March, it was tectonic changing because our partners have decided to make transformation from the Soviet systems, I mean military systems, weaponry systems, to NATO standards.
President Zelensky said that Ukraine was losing 200 men and women a day, dead, another 400 or 500 wounded. That's a whole battle group, a NATO battle group.
It was really a lot of killed in actions and wounded. But when we get artillery and MLRS systems like HIMARS, this quantity down low. And you are right, we were paying by the blood of our lives of our people. And I hope that our partners understand it.
Are you not afraid that the international community, your partners, may begin to tire of this war?
I call it fatigue syndrome, yeah. And for me, it's one of the main threat. And we need to work on with this threat. Because we need to speak like with you, to communicate, to ask people, don't be on this fatigue mood. Because this is very, very dangerous for us.
Is it drifting into stalemate?
The worst scenario was behind us and left behind us. And we are in a stage of stabilizing of the battlefield or battle line with a small movement of the units. And we made a lot of deterrent them. And I think that we on a edge of the new stage because we have to go forward to start our counter-offensive campaign in different directions.
So who did attack and blow up those aircraft in Crimea? Was it missiles or special forces?
I think it was breaking rules, don't smoke in the dangerous places.
Oh, the Russians blew them up themselves?
It was like a lucky strike in a bowling game.
Yeah, but who threw the ball?
Probably Russian soldiers.
If they continue to get fired from, or if there's an escalation that comes from Belarus, will Ukraine attack Belarus?
It's a good question, because the official part of Belarus playing their game, trying to balance between Russia, and I absolutely sure that Belarusian people, they don't want to go with the war to Ukraine.
Could it spread across Europe, this war?
No. I think that this war started in Ukraine and will finish in Ukraine.
This is the Zaporiyia nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine. It's Europe's largest and it's in an active war zone, raising fears of a potential nuclear disaster. Russia took control of the facility in March, and since then Moscow and Kyiv have blamed each other for intensified shelling on and around the plant.
Any attack to a nuclear plant is a suicidal thing, and I hope that those attacks will end.
Experts are concerned that damage to the plant risks releasing radioactive material into the environment. The nuclear plant faces two main threats: direct and indirect.
We're talking about primarily shelling and attacks on two particular types of facility. So these are the nuclear power plants themselves, housing the reactors, and the spent fuel cooling pools. And both of these contain nuclear fuel that has been through a reactor. The plants at Zaporiyia are inside containment buildings. The idea is that if there is any issue with inside that reactor that leads to fuel melting, explosions, then the containment building is meant to hold all of that within, to literally contain any of the negative consequences.
Containment buildings in modern nuclear plants are built to withstand scenarios like an accidental aircraft strike, but it's unknown if they can withstand the force of artillery shells or missiles. But the greater risk potentially lies with the spent fuel cooling pools, the 6 large pools seen here, that cool down used up nuclear fuel.
Those are just outside in the open air with no physical protection over them from attack. And this is very common at nuclear facilities to store spent nuclear fuel in this way. But it does mean that any attack or any explosion that would hit those could lead to much more severe consequences immediately. If the water inside those pools can no longer be actively cooled, then that fuel will heat up. It will likely heat up very quickly to the point where it catches fire. This can lead to a breakdown of the radioactive material, which is then released into the atmosphere.
Indirect threats could involve damage to the resources the nuclear plant relies on to function safely.
The availability of expert workers, the cooling water, the off-site power, any damage to that risks stopping those cooling functions. And whilst there are backup systems in place, if these are not able to cope, then we could see the fuel no longer being cooled and it overheating and eventually catching fire, which would again lead to a radioactive materials release.
The potential danger from a radioactive release at Zaporiyia would depend on several factors, including how much material is released and how it travels, with weather playing a role. Experts are divided on the potential severity of that danger, but they are united in their calls for attacks around the nuclear plant to stop.
La funcionaria de un pequeño pueblo a pocos kilómetros de la capital de Ucrania protegió a los habitantes de la invasión rusa con un arma muy particular. Según la afiliada francesa BFM-TV, se trata de Halina Kozarchenko, alcaldesa de Fenevichi, quien durante más de un mes de ocupación rusa tuvo que negociar implacablemente con los soldados y se improvisó como guerrera con un arma formidable, su bicicleta. Según explicó en una entrevista para este medio, fue el transporte que utilizó para patrullar todas las calles del lugar. Incluso relató que durante las largas semanas de presencia rusa y a pesar de la omnipresencia de los soldados enemigos, la bandera ucraniana ondeó todos los días en el techo del ayuntamiento.